Hey, what is up, Hawk fans? I wanted to give you guys a little update. We're trying something different today. Well, not totally different. Of course, you guys know I've started recording things while driving. It's just what it comes down to, quite frankly, is very simple. One is I'm a very busy guy. I don't always have the most time in the world to get behind the camera and the setup and get going. It's not that the setup takes a ton of time, but it's the whole act of getting it set up, recording the show, all of it. This does just provide a slightly quicker avenue of recording. And then two is I am somebody who thinks and while driving, as a lot of people do. And so this is a good method and means to utilize this time to share thoughts with you guys. So I got a clip-on mic and I recorded with that. I had varying levels of success with it. I think the first one or two I recorded, it sounded pretty good. And with that clip-on mic, I did figure it out within the car, the best setup to have the best sound. But it still was not how I would like it. I think it was passable, but not to the standard that I wanted it to be. And I told you guys I have no issues working through things and you guys seeing me work through some of these things. So I did some research, and I found a guy on YouTube who did a review on different microphones while driving, and a few of them sounded just fine. I thought they sounded okay, so I decided to get one of them a little bit more expensive, and so we're trying it out today. We'll see how it sounds. Let me know in the comments. So what I want to talk about today, and perhaps I'll do another video where I show the actual article. I'll probably I'll definitely link it in the description on this video. But if I have time to get behind the camera, assuming there's not something that's more important that comes down the line, I can share the screen and show you guys the article that spurned this discussion. Some of the videos that you guys can look forward to coming down the pipeline, position previews. A lot of Iowa fans do that, or Iowa contributors do that. My first one I did was the quarterback preview, and we're gonna go down the line that way. I'll probably do offense, defense, offense, defense, offense, defense. We will probably go like that. And then I have some other fun videos planned, like ranking Iowa's position groups from best to worst, and go from there. So the topic for today, by the way, guys, smash that subscribe button. At the very least, like, comment. You guys know the drill. Help me get to 2,000 subscribers. We're very close. I appreciate all the support already, more than you guys know. Is recruiting budgets, recruiting expenses. So for the longest time, I always assumed that Iowa was, at the very least, competitive in the realm of recruiting resources. Now, the article that I read, it labels it as recruiting expenses rather than labeling it flat out recruiting budget. But essentially, whatever a school spends, especially what they have spent, I would say over the course of like 5 to 10 years, is more or less the budget that they have for that particular thing. And it makes sense. It's not just recruiting or sports budgets, but it's pretty much every business. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Maybe if you guys have seen the show The Office, there's an episode where Michael Scarn, aka Michael Scott, comes in under budget, and of course he has to find a way to utilize the extra money, or else the following year the budget is going to be less. So I share that example to say that what you see somebody spend is pretty much their budget. You can safely assume that it is more or less their budget. And I always assumed that Iowa was one of the top schools as far as resources goes, because it is a popular school with a strong fan base. And more specifically, my voice just cracked. It's been a long weekend for me. Over the last 40 years, Iowa has had a competitive football program. Now, by and large, has their athletic department been sky high, or if you look like across the board for their sports, perhaps not. And men's basketball, the second most expensive sport, or income, profit generated sport for Iowa, has had varying levels of success too. I would say by and large over the last 40 years, they've been good more than they have not. Now, basketball in and of itself is an interesting case because, of course, Carver Hawkeye, even if Iowa is good, it's kind of hard to judge because Carver Hawkeye Arena is odd, and its whole setup is odd. But specifically for football, they have been good for the last 40 years. The fan support for Iowa for the past 40 years has been solid, as good as anybody in the country. And so my assumption is if the fan base is good and they're selling tickets and they're selling seats and all of that good stuff, then they must be one of the top schools for resources, because that is literally profit-related production. Selling tickets is, of course, the goal. And I'm here to tell you guys that it's just not true. Now, obviously, I've come to realize that there's more to it than just that. But just to wrap this up in a nice little bow here, Iowa is near the bottom of the Big Ten for sports expenses. And the schools that were used, my understanding, and I think it was for last year, was women's basketball for all schools. Women's basketball, football, men's basketball. I think those were the four sports that they used. The budgets and the expenses combined for those four sports. Now, of course, every school has a little bit different setup. Like Rutgers, soccer's probably bigger. Rutgers and Maryland, soccer's probably bigger. Iowa wrestling is big. Penn State wrestling is big. And it's not a apples to apples comparison across the board, because every school has, I would say, at least a niche sport that they invest heavily in compared to the other schools. Comparatively speaking. But with that being said, the main sports across the board, for the most part, are basketball and football. And Iowa is near dead last. The only schools behind them are Wisconsin, which I was surprised to see that as well. Wisconsin, UCLA, and I was surprised to see that. Very surprised to see UCLA, because that is a school with a illustrious alumni base. The other school was, it was Wisconsin, UCLA, and there was one other, Purdue was one. So Iowa checked in, I think, at 13th. They were either 12th or 13th. Wisconsin was next. UCLA was next. Purdue was somewhere in there, and I think there might have been one other school. Some of the notable schools ahead of Iowa: Nebraska, Minnesota, Rutgers. Rutgers surprisingly was top 5. But if you think about where the school is located and the alumni base that they have, I guess on a certain level, it makes some sense. But Iowa dead last? I mean, of course, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, they were tops. Rutgers was tops. Rutgers was the surprise to me. But Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska, all ahead of Iowa. And I don't know about you guys, I was kind of surprised to see those schools ahead of Iowa. I really was. Considering the success that Iowa has had. Well, maybe not Nebraska, but definitely Illinois and Minnesota. Now, maybe there's something I'm not aware of, considering I don't live in the Midwest and I'm not as familiar with how things go there. And of course, again, every situation is different. I think maybe Northwestern was below Iowa as well. Maybe that was the school that was below Iowa as well. But it's just crazy. And you know, some schools, the government relation to the schools is not the same across the board. You know, Iowa is a state institution as far as I'm aware. Now, most schools obviously are state institutions, but the power and authority that the state has over each school, I'm sure, is a little bit different from school to school. But still, I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm wrong, but 12th or 13th? Wow. I thought Iowa would be, like, at the very least mid to, well, I'll put it to you. Let me backtrack. I was not surprised now, but had you shown me this article like 5 years ago, I definitely would have been surprised. And even still, I was somewhat surprised by Illinois and Minnesota being ahead of Iowa. And so I share all this to say, you know, I do all these videos on recruiting and things like that, and I keep you guys up to date. I give you guys my full, honest opinion on things. And so my takeaway from this is that we do have to be a little bit more, not that Iowa fans are not understanding, but I do kind of see a lot of the comments, and I think perhaps when it comes to the recruiting rankings, we could have, including myself, we could have a little bit more grace. Now, I know the Swarm Collective is doing well, and just because the school only allots a certain amount of money for recruiting, it's kind of, we're getting into murky territory with the whole NIL collective for each school and things like that. But if you just purely look at it from what the school spends, not with the collectives and stuff like that, and who knows, maybe the collectives are added to it. But over the last couple of years, everything I have read has said that Iowa Swarm Collective is one of the best in the Big Ten. So I'm assuming that that is not included. So either way, I think us as Iowa fans, we should have a little bit more grace and understanding when it comes to Iowa recruiting, especially under Kirk Ferentz. Things are never going to be, you know, Iowa's never going to be top 20 or anything like that consistently. I have told you guys from day one what Iowa should shoot for, especially considering their on-the-field success and the prestige that the school holds within the Big Ten, primarily through the last 40 years of success, give or take a few years, is, I would say, minimum top 40 each year. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Is this news interesting to you? Like, comment, share, subscribe. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow on facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.